You know, my father sat me down right here, told me what Wayne Manor was built on. They were hunters. I'm older now than my father ever was. It's my legacy.
Superman was never real. Just the dream of a farmer from Kansas.
That dream is all some people have.
He brought the war to us.
You know you can't win this. It's suicide.
This is about the future of the world.
I'll take you in without breaking you.
Here I am.
It's true what they say about little boys. No natural inclination to share.
You're not brave. Men are brave.
The world only makes sense if you force it to.
Hi, everybody, and welcome once again to Geekfest Rants. My name is Carlos Perron, and I have Steve Avona joining me. Hi, Steve.
Hey, Carlos.
Well, we've done a show like this once before. We do a lot of shows like this. Obviously, the comic book subject, especially films, comic book turned into films. You know, we're all over that every time they come by. And, you know, the last one was a great one with Deadpool. It was a great entry into the film version of comic books. Today, we're going to be hitting Batman versus Superman, which you could kind of see it as a continuation of an earlier one we did a couple years ago when Man of Steel came out, because these are, you know, more or less sequels to each other. You know, they're continuations to those type of shows. And from what I remember last time, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, we had a very differences of opinion when it came to Man of Steel. Back then, I think we got together with Tony also. Yes. And you guys are more hardcore comic traditional people, and I'm not as comic book centric, and that might be part of why we had such a difference of opinion. But is that what you remember from our last conversation?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was kind of like I was somewhere in the middle. Tony was not a fan,
right,
and you liked it. And I kind of was wishy-washy on it, which I think is kind of what's going to happen today.
Well, let's go over a little bit of the plot, if you will. You know, just the high points. You know, what do you remember about how they're turning this universe a little bit sideways and introducing new characters?
Well, you know, DC is desperate to catch up to Marvel in terms of building their cinematic universe, and they're years behind them, so they are really trying to speed things up in terms of establishing their universe. So rather than the way Marvel did it with like building blocks, one on top of the other, Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, all leading into Avengers, you just had Man of Steel, and now all of a sudden you've got Batman, you've got Wonder Woman, you've got cameos by other Justice League characters. This movie is stuffed to the gills, whereas the other films kind of had breathing room. So this is, yes, it's, I would say it's a direct sequel to Man of Steel in terms of Superman's story, but we also have bringing in Batman, who is played by Ben Affleck.
Right. This is supposed to be their Avenger gathering of everybody type of film.
Yeah, but whereas, you know, you're gathering the big three, and then Justice League will have all the rest, and then those characters will spin out into their own movies.
Right.
Except Wonder Woman will come out before Justice League. But, you know, in terms of this one, Batman, I would say, kind of overshadows Superman in terms of his story.
Yeah, he seemed to be, even though on paper it might look as if they're kind of splitting the movie, this is more of a Batman story. I would say maybe, like 60%, 65% more Batman than Superman?
I would say, yeah, I would agree with that. And I would say, you know, with Wonder Woman maybe having like 10%.
Oh, yeah.
It's like an extended cameo.
Yes, exactly. And the other guys, a complete cameo. They were they're just cameos.
They're just glimpses.
Now, we're coming off Man of Steel. Metropolis has gotten decimated, more or less.
Right.
And which was one of the big, I remember one of the big criticisms of the last film. And here they try to, depending on your opinion, successfully or unsuccessfully, weave that into the story, work it into the story, take advantage of it for Batman's sake.
Right, and I thought that was made a very logical jumping off point, sort of beginning the movie with the end of Man of Steel, but yet showing Bruce Wayne's participation in what happened. You know, this movie establishes that Metropolis and Gotham City are kind of twin sister cities, kind of the way, like, say, Minneapolis and St. Paul are, which has never been stated before. But whatever, it works for the movie. So obviously it gives Bruce Wayne a chance to be right in the thick of the destruction of Metropolis and the Wayne building and all his employees, so many of them being killed and injured.
Very 9/11-ish.
Yeah.
The visuals they give us.
So it gives Bruce Wayne a sort of a jumping off point for why he feels the way he feels about Superman, and leading into the plot of this one, of them being antagonists.
Right.
So you have that, and you have Superman's sort of finding his place in the world. That's kind of his story, and how he's being treated by the world sort of as something of like a god kind of a situation, and sort of him coming to terms with that. And what we find out later, and of course this is a spoiler discussion,
yes, we
Lex
always do
Luthor is sort of puppeteering a lot of what's going on in the movie to sort of get the two of them to fight. And, played by Jesse Eisenberg, who a lot of people criticized his performance. I actually liked him. There's a lot of things I didn't like about the movie, but I thought he was good. And people thought he was ridiculous and really criticized his performance. And my thought was, at least he did something different. The same way Gene Hackman did something different, not expecting, in the Donner film, being sort of this kind of funny, kind of comedic, land baron character, not the mad scientist character from the comic,
right,
who despised Superman. Like this was a different take, and I thought he was good. So Lex is sort of the man behind the curtain, manipulating events to get them to fight, and goes from there.
Right, and I agree with you in terms of you don't want to have somebody doing a ripoff of Hackman. Hackman is the bar. That's how, you kind of judge these days all the Lex Luthors. Spacey did a pretty good job as far as I'm concerned. He put his little twist in it.
Right.
Not very memorable as far as I'm concerned. Mm-hmm. But with Eisenberg, the problem that you always have is that he's a little bit of a one-note actor. He has that, the Facebook character.
Oh, the Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, he's got that kind of is going to continue, I guess, throughout his career. He has that, I don't know what you want to call it, but it's
kind of like a snide arrogance.
Exactly. And here, obviously, he tries to, I would say, joker it up a little bit. He's got a bit of that crazy spark of insanity that kind of turns it up, which, okay, it's a comic book. It works in that manner. So, I didn't have any problems with that. I didn't have any problems with Affleck either. I like his version of Batman. I couldn't tell you if, I would have to see more of it in future films if possible, hopefully, to see if he's better than Bale. I couldn't tell you at this point.
I think he was good. I liked what I liked most about the Batman character in this film is it's really a version of the character we've never seen before. This is a character, a Bruce Wayne, that is at least 20 years older than the other actors did it when they did it. And he's been Batman for 20 years, and he's grizzled, and he's angry, and he's seeing that a lot of the work that he's done hasn't changed anything a bit. And, it's obvious, and even though we've not told the backstory of it, that Robin was killed.
Right, by the Joker.
And that's something from the comic. And I'm hoping that would be something they explore in future films. So it doesn't really surprise you that he would react the way he reacts to Superman. Right. And again, that's sort of something that people argue about. Well, Superman and Batman are supposed to be friends, blah, blah, blah. That's really not the case. Not in, say, the last 30 years of comic lore. They don't start out as friends, and they're sort of uneasy allies at best.
But is it the same argument? Is it the you're a vigilante and you think you're a god type of argument?
Well, that is something that was... See, a big criticism that's been leveled against Zack Snyder is that he seems to have really pulled their relationship from one story that was written in the 80s, a classic story called The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller.
Okay.
And that is really his template for this relationship that they have in this movie. And it's a little bit more nuanced than what he's showing in the film. And a lot of people kind of took issue with it. I mean, it's a partial adaptation, loose adaptation of one story that people are saying, well, he just wanted to see that fight from that story with Batman with the kryptonite armor and everything and figure a way to put it into this movie. So I would like to believe that if they have the opportunity, they'll develop the relationship between them. I'm not so much opposed to them showing this. It made for a cool fight and everything like that. But I don't love his take on Superman. So
would you say it's the same take that he had in Man of Steel?
To a degree, but I thought that it was going to evolve from Man of Steel. I find Henry I think he's the weakest link in the whole film. And I think he doesn't either get Superman or he's not being directed well, or whether it's by Zack Snyder or the producers or the writers giving him the kind of direction he needs to play Superman. I find him to be mopey. I find him to be sort of like dour and pissy and obviously to me with Batman, you've had a million different actors play him, different interpretations. There's only been one Superman as far as I'm concerned. It's Christopher Reeve. And I think he had the right idea of how to play this character. It's fine to have him in a dark story, but this is not... See, here's the difference between, say, this and like Captain America Winter Soldier. Okay. That was a great movie. It was dark. The tone was dark. It was, whatever. But he was still Cap. Chris Evans was still playing Captain America the way he should be played. His character doesn't alter from who he is at his core. In Man of Steel and this, I just don't see Cavill. Like, I even think Brandon Routh, even though he might have been ripping off Christopher Reeve, had a better sense of how to play Superman than this guy does. He's just too, I don't know, down in the dumps and I don't need to. That's not the core of the character. And, again, I think...
Well, could you say that the character is still kind of discovering himself? In other words, the Superman you see now is not the final product Superman. This is the Superman that's evolving into trying to figure out who he is? That's a good point. And I think that I would hope that that's the case. In, say, both the Christopher Reeve movies and the Routh movie... it's not an origin story. Right. But in Superman, they kind of compress it, condense it. But the character in the Donner film seems to get it right off the bat. Who am I? Why am I here? This is what I believe in. This is what my father taught me. This is what my foster father, whatever you want to say, taught me. And in this one, I just don't see that. I don't see that character emerging the way like Chris Evans plays Captain America. Captain America is the most vanilla apple pie sort of character, and so is Superman. But that's my argument. You put that character into a dark film like Winter Soldier, and I'm sure an even darker film in Civil War, which I can't wait for, and he's still going to be who he is, and you're going to like him, and you're going to... But he's evolving. He's definitely evolving in terms of it's not apple pie America anymore. He has to kind of turn and weave a little bit, but not, without losing his identity in the process. Right. So there is... I'm not saying that there's no hope, but I kind of agree with what's being said, in the blogosphere about his version of Superman, about this version of Superman that they're getting. I mean, I'm not going to go so far. I mean, people have said there's been articles that he's being ruined and this generation's, is ruined of Superman, a lot's been said about the critical reviews. The critics, completely destroy the film. However, the audience, if you follow Rotten Tomatoes, it's actually getting a little slightly better ratings than Man of Steel. So it's in that vein, in other words, if you like Man of Steel, odds are this is going to be kind of in the direction where you're at. Yeah. As opposed to the critical response. Yeah. And what's going to be very interesting is, we're talking now, it's the second weekend of its release. Yes. And the big question is, what kind of a drop is the film going to see in terms of its box office? If it drops dramatically, anywhere between 60 and 70%, then they're in trouble because they've made to this point to our conversation, $500 million, I think. $500 million. They need to crack $1 billion to be profitable.
And it remains to be seen what legs the movie has, whether the reviews and the word of mouth are going to kind of cripple it or not. Because again, this is a huge gamble. DC already has shot and finished Wonder Woman, which, by the way, I think is a very promising take on the character. I liked, we can talk about this, but I liked Gal Gadot very much. What I saw of her.
Yeah, I only wish there would have been more of her. I brought my kids to see the film. My son liked it pretty much. It is darker. It is a much darker film than ever before. But one of my complaints would be I wish there was more Wonder Woman because I wanted to have more of something for my daughter to cheer for other than the last 10 minutes of the movie.
Right. And I think that was on purpose. I think they just wanted to whet your appetite.
Teasing you, yeah, exactly.
Tease you. I mean, the movie is going to be out in less than a year, so it's coming. But there's all this, and you don't know what's internet rumor and what's true and everything. But there's talk now that there's been, because of the critical backlash, there's been talk of massive rewrites on Justice League, which is going to start shooting any day now in April, and then also discussion just in the last few days that DC and Warner's is massively reshooting Suicide Squad to sort of match the humor of Deadpool. And not to say like the breaking of the fourth wall, but just the fact that the trailer of Suicide Squad is loaded with funny bits. And what I've been reading, again, you don't know what's true and what's not true, but supposedly they stuffed the trailer with all the funniest bits. And now they want to shoot more funny bits to kind of match the mood.
Speaking of funny bits, I think that's what happened with the Batman vs. Superman trailer, is that the only punchline in the movie is in the trailer. Is she with you? Oh, I thought she was with you.
Yeah.
There was no humor whatsoever in this film. Absolutely nothing. And I know that was one of the complaints I know Tony had before, was that there is no light point. This is the last one was very dark. This one's even darker.
Yeah. And you know what? I think that, again, I keep, I sound like a broken record, but I would go back to Cap Winter Soldier as the sort of template for you can do dark, and dark can be good. I mean, I'm all for dark. Empire Strikes Back, dark, great movie. But I also like Return of the Jedi. You can't, the atmosphere cannot be so oppressive.
Yeah.
And that's what DC seems to want to do. And I think that that's a mistake. I think, all right, maybe they want to set themselves apart from Marvel, which I can understand.
That's the thing. You hit it on the head right there. Marvel, now I don't know if it's because it's just Marvel or because they did it first, but is it possible that because Disney owns Marvel, they have to keep it lighter because they want those preteens to come to their movies?
I don't agree with that because Marvel was doing this before Disney bought
Disney?
them.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because they started right off the bat with Iron Man.
But you don't think that when Disney bought them out, there's like an overall edict of, listen, guys, you want to keep it this way, keep it nice and light?
I would say yes, that probably is true. Mm-hmm. But Marvel, like I said, was doing it even before Disney kind of touched them.
Okay.
So I would say the Disney purchase was maybe an enhancement of that. But I think Marvel had their secret sauce already, going before that. And now it's sort of a foregone conclusion. Okay, now Disney owns us. Okay, that's fine. We've already got, we're doing it. We don't need them to tell us to switch it up. Whereas I guess Warner Brothers wants to go in a different direction. But I found, look, in a nutshell, I found this film to be too long, too dark, too unrelenting. There's something about the way they stage battles, like in Man of Steel and in this, whereas Marvel does it in such a way, like even both Avengers films, that you can still focus on what's going on. I almost liken this, and it's not as bad.
No, don't say the T word. Don't say the T word. The best
analogy I can come up with is Transformers.
You bastard.
And I'm sorry, but Zack Snyder is cut from the same cloth as Michael Bay.
I think we're losing connection here. Oh my God, we're losing the connection.
You can cut me off. I don't give a shit. It's true. Zack Snyder. Here's my ultimate point here. Zack Snyder, I don't think he's terrible. I don't think he's like Michael Bay level ridiculous, but he's got that.
He likes the visuals. He likes the adrenaline.
let me also make sure I get this on record. I liked Watchmen very much. I thought that's a great comic. It's a dark comic. I couldn't believe that he pulled it off, because
there might have been more funnier moments in Watchmen.
Maybe. But I mean, that was a tough nut to crack, and he did it, and it was good. But I don't think, and I've said this to other people, I don't think that basing his... I mean, it wasn't even that financially successful. I mean, it made maybe like 110.
Yeah, it was kind of lukewarm.
So to give him the keys to the DC kingdom and make him essentially like what Kevin Feige would be at Marvel was a gigantic mistake.
Nah, you think he's locked into like for a lifetime of Marvel? Don't you see him more like a Whedon type? You bring him in and then you get rid of him?
No, I think that if he had really knocked it out of the park with this, maybe he could have been like a Kevin Feige. But I think his role will be kind of cut after, like he's doing Justice League Part 1. I don't necessarily think he's going to do Justice League Part 2. And I think they might just kind of put him out to pasture. And you could get the other directors in the way they do with Marvel, which would definitely be a smart move. But I think I think the idea would have been, if this was like knocked it out of the park, super darling, critical, whatever, that he would have kind of been an overseer of things. And I think he's probably going to get, cut out of the picture, but they can't obviously do it for Justice League. He is all about the visuals and the story. I want to also get this on record. I didn't dislike this movie. I just didn't love it.
Right. I feel very much the same way in terms of, I'd like to view this movie as the second act of something. This is where everything kind of goes to hell. And one of the things I wrote was that it's the Empire Strikes Back downer type of chapter where your heroes just got their ass handed to them and now they're just licking their wounds and trying to figure out what happens next.
Right.
And unfortunately, as opposed to Empire, there's not a lot of levity within that to kind of keep the whole story still with a hopeful beat to it. This one, yes, it does have a hopeful beat, a technical hopeful beat, but not an emotional hopeful beat.
No, the film has no heart. The film doesn't have really any emotion. And again, if you read the comics, any moron knows that Superman is coming back.
Of course. And in the end, you see the little dirt flying up like in the first movie. Let me quickly ask you a couple questions. That whole vision that Batman sees, what the hell is that? That Superman is almost like Bizarro Superman. He's got all these henchmen and these guys with the Superman emblem on their soldiers and stuff.
That vision was just a nightmare. That was just like him.
That doesn't come from any official comic anything? Guys who fly with wings and stuff like that?
No. Well, no. Here's the thing. There are other visions in the film that are sort of setting the stage and foreshadowing the DC version of Thanos, which is Darkseid.
Okay.
Darkseid is coming. And Lex even says as much at the end when he says...
That's what he's hinting to? Okay.
He's heard, it's went out, he's coming. It's Darkseid. Darkseid is DC's version of Thanos.
Got it.
These... there was a deleted scene that was posted online a few days ago that really pushes the whole Darkseid thing.
Yeah, some weird creature with juggling balls or something.
That and the parademons that you see in Batman's Nightmare, that's supposed to be foreshadowing Darkseid. Also, you see the Omega symbol in the desert. He's looking out and you see this Omega symbol. That's Darkseid. So, that seems to be what... And it makes sense. I'm not saying that they're ripping off Marvel. Darkseid is their big bad, and he'll, I would be very interested to see the Justice League going up against him.
What about the image of, to me, it looked like, I thought it was Robin, but some character who's coming out of a vision and he's talking to Batman, and somebody said, oh, that's the Flash.
That's the Flash.
Is it the Flash?
It is the Flash. Yeah, that's the Flash. That's the guy who's playing the Flash.
That's the actor. Okay, got it.
Yeah. And the costume was looking kind of wacky.
Yeah, I was like, what
really
is that? I couldn't identify him through the costume.
Yeah, that's the Flash. And, the Flash can travel through time, and that's the Flash going back through time, and it's a major foreshadowing. That's the thing with this movie, too, is it's so stuffed with other plot points and foreshadowing the other movies, which Marvel sort of does in a much more subtle way. And because DC's playing catch up, they have to kind of really just jam it all in there.
They don't do the stingers. They like to put it in the movie.
Oh, yeah. And they just, it's like, okay, what was that all about? And I mean, if you're in the know, you sort of get it. But truthfully, I can't explain to you what he was saying about Lois Lane and she's a whatever and blah, blah, blah.
Did you accept or like the twist of how Batman gets Superman to kind of realign himself with the whole thing with the mothers share the first name?
I thought that was so stupid.
Really?
I mean, I thought that was... I was hoping we would get to that because I want to just call that out as like the stupidest thing I've ever heard, ever. I'm like, okay, so their mothers are both named Martha, and he's this close to killing you, and you say Martha's in trouble or whatever the hell he says, and that makes him stop.
He says, like save
what do you
Martha.
Mean? What are you talking about,
like
Martha? I mean, again, with the whole Batman's parents dying thing, yeah, we get it. But I just thought that was lazy writing and ridiculous. He could have said something different. He could have said, my mother, Lex has my mother, or something.
It's like, why are you keeping it a secret?
I'm like, what the hell is this?
Well, that always happens. That happens a lot of times where it's like somebody's doing something because they kidnapped their mother, and it's like, well, just tell somebody that just happened. Just tell somebody,
Yeah, but that's the reason you're fighting? Like, all right, I get, couldn't he have just said to Batman, this is like the kind of thing you would see on...
Three's Company?
True trailers or something, where they say, what's wrong with Batman versus Superman in 5 minutes? Like, that to me is just really bad. And I was like, oh, God.
Now, let me ask you something. Did we meet Jimmy Olsen in Man of Steel?
No.
Okay.
And supposedly he cameos in this?
And from what I understand, it was Jimmy Olsen in the beginning of this film, right?
Yeah, I that's what I'm told.
Which is what a waste.
You gonna piss away that character on like some stupid like that? I didn't like that.
I didn't realize that until later on the internet, finding out. Oh yeah, that was Jimmy Olsen. It's like, oh, now I know.
Okay, so so you got him on Supergirl, Which again, this is a much larger discussion, but I think that the DC TV shows, they have got it. They have got it down pat. I don't care if the tone is light. I don't care what, I mean, you look at a show like Arrow, that's pretty dark. They've got the magic touch. And with the movies, I don't know. There's something not firing on all cylinders with the movies. I don't know. They got such a late start, which I don't understand. And now they, go with Zack, which I don't understand. And, some of these other decisions that they've made, whereas Marvel, it's like everything they do, they just turns to gold. Even like the only crappy thing was Fantastic Four, which was not really truly Marvel.
Well, that was Fox.
That was Fox. But you could also say that Fox's other Marvel stuff, I mean, X-Men is always a home run, and Deadpool was incredible.
Well, yeah, that's a game changer there.
And you have something like Deadpool that is on I don't know what the budget was, but it's made like $350 and it's still going. Yeah. And if that outgrosses Batman, Superman, that's going to be a huge embarrassment.
Plus, everybody seems to be adjusting themselves for Deadpool in terms of, all these reshoots. We need funnier. We need darker. Yeah. We need funnier. We need darker. It's like, wait, what's going on here?
Yeah, well, that's just, sort of a knee-jerk reaction to things, and I don't think that that's a smart thing to do, especially if your film is already, done.
Yeah.
But I think there was a lot to like about this. And, now they're talking about a 3-hour Blu-ray. I don't need to see
R-rated
that.
Version.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get me. Of course, I'm going to watch it, but I don't see
who's
the need
character
for
that
it.
I kept reading that they cut out for this? That
was Oracle. That was Barbara Gordon, who was Commissioner Gordon's daughter, and who's Batgirl. And in the comics, she had been paralyzed by the Joker, and put in a wheelchair, and then she sort of became like what Felicity is in Arrow, like that kind of a character. But she's in a wheelchair, and she used to be Batgirl, so that was sort of her. They just cut her completely out of the movie, I understand. So that I'll be interested to see that. And I'm also going to be interested. I'm also going to be I'm very excited for Suicide Squad. And Affleck is in it in a sort of a cameo, extended cameo. And I'd be interested to see his interaction with Jared Leto as the Joker.
Well, there were apparently a lot of little Easter eggs scattered all over this film. I keep seeing a picture of like an underground cave or something where columns, and in the columns you could see like Riddler question marks and Jack or Joker or something like that. like written on the walls.
I'm not sure that might have been like, like in the Batcave, he had like souvenirs of stuff from them.
Possibly it was something like graffiti on the walls or something.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not too sure.
Now, you mentioned before we are getting the rest of these characters. Here's a funny one, an ironic one, I guess. Cyborg being created, and the Doctor is the guy who played Miles from the Terminator. He seems to be the guy who creates robots.
Yeah, I think his name is John Morton. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
the
it's
actor's
Morton.
name.
Yeah, it's definitely Morton. Yes.
But I think, that was cool to see. Definitely.
I wish we could have gotten more of Aquaman. He just kind of pokes his head out and back into the freaking thing. It's like, oh man, I wanted more of that.
And again, like you talk about, I'm not thrilled with the casting of either Aquaman or Flash. I mean, I like Jason Momoa. I think he was great in Game of Thrones, but I didn't envision him as Aquaman. And Ezra Miller, who's playing the Flash, I mean, I honestly haven't seen anything he's done, but he doesn't even have the look. I'm just like, all right, and I think the Flash costume is sort of like I've seen the concept art. It's all like armored. Ooh. And I'm like, all right, it doesn't look good.
Are we dealing with, as far as you know, is anybody officially saying we are dealing in alternate universes here? The movie is not just in terms of how to explain it to people in terms of, oh, this is this and this is that, but are we dealing in alternate universes?
Well, in terms of, it's an interesting question. I think that DC in the TV shows, just in the last 6 months.
Because they've been dipping into that like crazy.
Well, yeah, because that was a big thing that was a huge concept with DC. And the fact that there were alternate Earths, the shows have really grabbed onto that in terms of you have the Flash and the Green Arrow Earth. And then you have the Supergirl Earth, which is they just did the crossover. And then you have the Earth 2, which is where the Jay Garrick version of the Flash is from. And in the comics, that's where the what they call the Golden Age heroes are from, the DC characters of like the 40s, and the Justice Society and all that stuff are from. And now whenever he travels through time, you see these flashes of things of other realities and whatever. And the biggest mind FUCK was him seeing the John Wesley Shipp version of The Flash, the 1990 TV show, which I really hope they're doing something. That would blow my mind.
They have to. They cannot get around that issue that they've been teasing in little bits and pieces. And the fact that they have so many of those actors floating around still, they have to do a little crossover here and there. And hell, they could throw a frame of the movie here or there to kind of indicate that these different things are happening.
That's the big question. Is there going to be a connection between the movie and the TV universes? That would be interesting. It would be a very bold move. And I don't see them doing it until the movies are more established.
Yeah.
But that would just blow my mind. I mean, the biggest thing you could ever imagine before this happening was Marvel getting the Avengers together. That just blew people's minds that you could have the same actors doing multiple movies. But if you have universes crossing this way, if they do it right, it could be amazing. It could be, because there is a huge story from the 80s called The Crisis on Infinite Earths. If they have it in the back of their minds that they're going to
one day do that,
adapt that in some way, it could be a total mind scramble. And that would be great. But, they have a long way to go. And especially with the movies. The shows, I'm very confident. They could probably spin out 5 more shows from the Greg Berlanti camp who's doing all the other stuff. Mm-hmm. And they would all be great. The movies, it's really up in the air. I mean, there's no home run here. Not yet. It remains to be seen.
Wonder Woman?
Yeah, Wonder Woman, then Justice League Part 1. Uh-huh. And then I'm not sure what the order is, because I think Part 1 and Part 2 will come out a year apart. I think you have Flash in 2018 and Aquaman, maybe Aquaman in late 17, definitely 18. And I think Cyborg in 19. Wow. And then in 20, if all goes well, you have Green Lantern, which is actually called Green Lantern Corps. It's not just Green Lantern.
But where does Suicide Squad fit into this? It is part of this universe.
Oh, definitely.
But is that the first one coming up this year?
Yeah, that's in August.
That's in August. Okay. So they're all lining up, man.
Yeah. So, that's definitely, you're going to have Affleck in that as Batman. It's definitely connected.
Cool. Well, I would like to say overall, again, in my opinion, if you like Man of Steel, this is in that vein, a lot darker, I would even say. If you like dark, this is dark. I like dark, and I thought it was definitely dark. It could have used a little more pep, a little more, shine to it, a little bit.
Yeah.
But I kind of see it, as I mentioned earlier, as it's the low point. It's the we just got our ass kicked point. And now with the rest of these movies, they're going to kind of bring you out of that. I'm not sure if that's what was meant, but that's how I'm treating it.
Okay.
In my particular world.
Yeah, I mean, I hope you're right, but I think that all remains to be seen. I don't think that this is, I don't think this was necessarily the way to go. I think there's, if I had to say, I'm almost 50-50 split on liking it and not liking it and having problems with it and also having things that I really enjoyed. Whereas something like the first Avengers, I was giddy.
It was exactly what you were looking for.
And I have a feeling that Captain America Civil War, which I'm counting the days for that to come out. I think that is going to just blow everything Marvel has done out of the water, much less this.
Yeah.
So. And
with Captain America, especially with the sequels and stuff, that's the place where if you want dark Marvel, that's where you go for dark Marvel.
It's dark, but again, it doesn't betray the character.
Right. And it kind of stays within the flavor of all the films, even though the films they've been playing with funnier, they've been playing with a little more of this, a little more of that. They all kind of speak the same language.
Exactly.
But these guys are still trying to kind of find their footing, like you said before.
Right.
Well, thank you, Steve, for joining us today and giving us your input on it. I'm sure hopefully we'll have some other inputs coming up for some of the other guys we've talked to. But I kind of, you kind of hit it on the nail on the head in terms of we kind of know where everybody's going to fall on this, I think, based on the previous films. Yeah. And thank you guys for listening, and we will see you here next time at Geekfest Rants. Bye-bye, everybody.
Today is a day for truth. The world needs to know what happened and to know what he stands for. That kind of power is very dangerous. Let the record show that this committee holds him responsible.
That's how it starts. The fever, the rage that turns good men cruel.
This bat vigilante is like a one-man reign of terror.
You don't get to decide what the right thing is. Nobody cares about Clark Kent taking on the Batman.
He has the power to wipe out the entire human race. And we have to destroy him.
Versus man. Day versus night. The red capes are coming. The red capes are coming.
I agree with Carlos. I don't believe it. As long as she suits up and kicks some ass, then I'm all for it.